Hello everyone, my name is Vincent Joos. I'm a cultural anthropologist and assistant professor in the Department of Modern Languages and Linguistics here at FSU. My work is mostly based in Haiti. This is where I do field research, looking at the reconstruction of the country after the 2010 earthquake. I'm working on a project in France, in Calais, France. This is the region where I was born and where I grew up. I grew up an hour from Calais. So Calais is like Port-au-Prince. It's a port city. I'm a cultural anthropologist slash cultural geographer. I like geography quite a lot. So I'm looking at space. I'm looking at urban planning. I'm looking at urban infrastructures, especially in port cities, because port cities are a really neat space to look at globalization and to look at exchanges and immigration. So my project, it's not an uplifting project either. Last week in the Strait of Dover, 27 migrants drowned. They both capsized. So yes, every week in Belgium and in northern France on the beach, people are dying. People are drowning. People are dying from diseases because they are trying to cross the channel. And so what I'm looking at, especially here, it's a long project. It will take me quite a bit of time, I think, but I'm looking at 2 periods of time in Calais. It has long been a very contentious space. It was colonized by the British in the 14th century. It was besieged and so on. It's a very, in a way, international space. And what we see today is that the border in Calais, in France, is administered by the British, for the better or for the worse. It's mainly for the worse, especially after Brexit and the fact that we have an extreme right government presently, the Johnson government in the United Kingdoms. So I'm looking at two different periods. The first one is World War I, especially 1917 to 1920, when 400,000 colonial and indentured workers came to France to help with the war effort. And in my region, it was about 100,000 Chinese workers who came from northern China to help with the war, not as soldiers, but burying soldiers, unloading ammunition, digging trenches. They lived in horrible conditions in work camps. One of those work camps was in Etaples, and this is where the flu pandemic of 1918 started, because of those horrible conditions and also the unique ethnic mixity that we had there. So I'm looking at that period because when Chinese workers came to work in France, they were rejected by the French government. They were supposed to come temporarily, and even if they wanted to stay in Europe, France did everything that they could to deter them from settling and living in France. So they could not get papers. They were forbidden to have any relations with French citizens, to the point that the French government forbade newspapers to report on romantic relations between Chinese people and French people. So extreme measures to push those people away from Europe. If you look at the post-Brexit period, and even before that, since 1999 in Calais, I find very close similarities. The same colonial system of administering non-white immigrants in France. We still have the same case today. If you are European, you can immigrate in France very easily. I would say even if you're white, it's a lot easier to get papers. If you are coming from former colonies, if you are trying to reach the UK, many people have family there for a reason. Most of the people who are trying to cross the Strait of Dover today are from the former British Empire. They are from Afghanistan. They are from Iraq. They are from Sudan. And they are living in miserable conditions because the UK is closing its border, and the only solution that we found to manage the so-called crisis of immigration is not a crisis. In my region, people have been immigrating there since the 11th century. the only solutions that we have are police brutality and what we call domicide, meaning that the police systematically destroys the shelters that immigrants are building for themselves. So that's what I'm looking at. It's a long project. It's part ethnography and going back to Calais and talking with people, especially politicians and policemen who are working for a system sometimes they disagree with. And looking at the similarities, especially in the context of our present pandemic, of anti-Asian racism as well. My focus is really on Chinese communities, simply because Chinese people still die at the border. In 2000, in Dover, we found 57 Chinese men and women died dead in a truck. 2 years ago in Calais, it was about 30 Chinese men and women that we found dead into a truck, just because they wanted to immigrate, right? So if you think about it, I'm a Frenchman, have a French passport, or if you have a US passport, tomorrow I can decide to go and open a business in Kabul, Afghanistan if I want to, or I can go anywhere in the world. So this is this disparity, also that conception of immigration without thinking about immigration. Is very clear in the case of the United States, which is a global economy with millions of US citizens working abroad, many of them in Afghanistan, for instance. Why can't we have a more balanced system here and a more humane way to deal with these people? Are not migrants or refugees. They are people. They are human beings. So that's a way that I look at the crisis of our democracies today through the lens of immigration. Yeah.